And I want to thank our MC today, Mr. David Beaumier. I've known for many years now. He's been a friend of Village Books for a long time. We appreciate his tireless involvement with the Whiting Groups, and, and with the work on these anthologies. So he's here today as our MC for this beautiful, the latest anthology from our Writers Corner prose and poetry collection. So David, thank you so much. So everybody join me in welcoming David Beaumier.
Hi, everyone. I did see that the record button has been turned on, so congratulations. We're all live on Candid Camera. That's a wonderful thing. Welcome to the reading of the Writers Corner. If you came in after this announcement, the way that I'm going to set up everyone coming through is I will say someone is up and then someone else is on deck. And we'll just move through that way. In between each one, I will introduce the person. You do not have to, please do not unmute to applaud in between him. Feel free to wave, to type in the chat, to say words of affirmation, whatever makes you feel good. You can applaud in your own home, but please do not unmute so that we can move on through the list. I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who participated in the Writers Corner this year. This is always a humongous act of love. We began soliciting submissions for this before the COVID-19 pandemic took hold. And it's just been such a delight to be able to see all of you as things have gone from bad to worse, and be able to spend this time working with all of you. This has been a real joy and a lifeline in everything that's happening. So thank you all so very much. Thank you everyone who's here to come and hear some of the best work that's been happening with the writers groups that are associated with Village Books. It used to be that met at Village Books, but now we have a loose virtual association, which is a delight. Without further ado, let's jump in. First, we're going to have Dick Jerry introducing the nonfiction group and then reading his piece, and we'll have Robert Legrand reading on deck after him.
Okay, can you hear me okay? All right, first I'd like to thank Village Books for just giving us all the opportunity to do this, because over 2 years ago, I started planning on writing a memoir, and probably the only one I'll ever write, because partly my age and the speed with which I'm doing it. But I looked around and saw Village Books was, they had what they call the Writers Corner, and they had a specialist in both fiction, nonfiction, poetry. And so I went to the nonfiction upstairs, the Writers Corner, and I went there for the first time, and immediately I was welcomed. Everybody just made me feel right at home. And immediately after the introductions were made, they got right down to work. And before you know it, I became very good friends with all these writers, many of whom are already published, and others who are like me, just getting started. And I want to thank you for all that. And anybody who might be interested in doing something like that, I highly recommend. The COVID gave us a problem right at first, because what are we going to do? And we decided we're going to start a Zoom program, and we have one of our own people, Tiana Sky, who has her own Zoom account. And we started that way and said, let's just meet the same day, the same time, as if we were actually at Village Books. And that's what we've been doing ever since. I don't think we've missed a day. I think the 4th of July one time was the only time we missed. So, again, thank you very much. It's meant a lot to me. Anybody who's interested, we're helping each other. Doesn't matter what your political views are, religious views. We're just trying to help each other write the story that we're trying to write, and whatever it might be. So thank you. Okay, I will start mine. A Wild Night with Ida. Saturday, September 24th, 1966. Tachikawa Air Base in Japan. 21:30 hours. Mach 063, Tachi Tower. Wind is 120 at 50 knots, gusting to 75. Jim turns the airplane left to a heading of 120 degrees. Cruise power, Jim yells out. RPM 2400. Higher engine RPM has a gyroscopic stabilizing effect on the entire airframe. We hear a thump and look back around for the cause. Eric fell out of his seat. Sorry, guys, I didn't think I'd need a seatbelt on the ground. Feels like we're in heavy turbulence. Jim, with his quick wit, speaks up. Eric, since you're out of your seat, why not grab us a cup of coffee? We all laugh at Eric's expense, but with a good sense of humor, he goes back to the small buffet and pours us some coffee from the built-in heated 5-gallon coffee container. Spilling more than we drink, it's back to business. And without warning, a major gust rocks the plane. The flight instrument panel, blurred from the vibration, is hard to read, with the airspeed indicator fluctuating rapidly between 75 and 40 knots. Then Tachi Tower calls. We're evacuating due to extremely high winds. Good luck and Godspeed. Now we're on our own, and old Shaky is living up to her name, violently swaying and throwing us repeatedly against our seatbelts. Directly in front of us, a portion of a metal roof torn from a building is tumbleweeding its way directly at us. If it hits one of our good engines, we may have to shut it down if it's damaged. Then we'll be down to 2 operating engines. We watch helplessly as it cartwheels and bounces across the ramp, passing directly under our right wing, past our dead engine, and hits nothing. Jim, did you see that? Climb power, yells Jim, pointing yet again into the wind. Push hard forward on the control column. Trim full nose down. The airplane's trying to fly. Keep the nose on the ground, Dick. I force the yoke forward, jarring my arms. The combination of the screaming wind and engines is deafening. The outside lights blink twice, and suddenly, everything's black. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dick. Next up is Larry Guevara, and on deck is Melody Goddard.
The letters. A bird does not sing because it has an answer. It sings because it has a song. Maya Angelou. Dear Lynette, does the burning desire for love mean that you should torch the love letters of your ex? It's not hard to see that the question of what you should do with old love letters is related to the nature of the relationship and separation. Fortunately, the physical presence of your letters gives me comfort and joy with only mild pangs of lament. Rachel, Monica, and Phoebe, in an episode of Friends, tried to break the bad boyfriend cycle by burning old love letters on Valentine's Day, the anniversary of my parents, along with sage branches, sacramental wine, and the semen of a righteous man. Although it's okay to substitute oregano and fresca. Don't worry about explaining the conflagration to the responding firefighters, for it won't be the first boyfriend bonfire they've seen get out of control. The woman in Lincoln, Nebraska, who burned the letters from her ex when she fell asleep, along with her apartment, must have had a bad relationship, but she did wake up in time to escape without injury. I don't know if Terry Barton, a forestry technician, was burning letters from her ex-husband or her own therapy letters when she set the tragic Hayman fires in 2002 near Colorado Springs. As Tom Lehrer says in his Masochism Tango, my soul is on fire, it's aflame with desire, which is why I perspire when we tango. Knowing the letters were written by your hand, being able to touch the paper that touched you, seeing the small, beautiful print has made it impossible to stop this project. Without the letters, the physical talisman, it would have been too easy to brush off the task as too naive or too arduous. There is no muse more powerful, few treasures more valuable than your letters. The little figure you drew at the end of a letter line, and I mean a tiny stick figure, maybe less than 1/4 of an inch high, with arms running the width of the page, with little hands at the end of the thin lines that you use to tell me I love you much, this much, with little arrows pointing to the small figure, could still send a ripple and earthquake of relief and love through my entire being after 40 years. The letters have a very emotional aspect, a powerful quality of remembrance. I'll read a passage, stopping to put my palms against my eyes to embrace the memories and feelings. Your handwriting is so beautiful and evocative. Touching, holding your letters is like embracing a talisman and letting the magic flow through. There are some pleasures almost too exquisite to endure. Marshmallow cream on your rocky road, 3 maraschino cherries on a cherry vanilla milkshake, watching babies eat ice cream for the first time, facing match point against you in the second set and winning the third. Your letters are one of those joys. I'm going to keep your letters, revisit them often, and never set them aflame. The vitality of your letters will enrich and inspire me and started my odyssey. I'm looking forward to a journey that may be long and formidable, like the last Incan pedestrian bridge towering over the Andes mountain gorge, the hand ropes fraying, the gap between the Ichu grass worn and thin, the wind buffeting your soul, no one behind or in front of you, but the view from the center of the span is spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Melody Goddard, and then we'll have John Green introduce poetry.
I'm reading from a piece called Turn in the Road. By grace, I still have a parking space at the downtown hotel that is valid until midnight. The streets are already crowded with merrymakers. I weave my way until I spot a perch high on a broad stone banister, Christchurch on Canby, to hunker down. It's a dopamine-drenching bustle of activity. Canadian Mounties on horseback blowing whistles, officiants on motorcades, kids waving flags, spilling drinks, dropping hot dogs on pavement. So many parades with my son in my arms, our daughter perched high on her father's shoulders. I lean against the chiseled rock, cold church edifice to enjoy. Bagpipes strut, leading Scottish regiments in tartan kilts, black and gold gleaming pipes aloft. A swing bang with a crusty-voiced lead singer rocks around the Christmas tree. A sparkling Swedish church nativity float flashes neon lights over a bleach blonde Virgin Mary on a perky toy pony. A booming baton battalion gyrating gold-glittered dancers. An earnest 100-member high school band in precision formation declares joy to the world. Near the end, Elvis sings "It Will Be a Blue Christmas Without Me." An angelic children's choir unfolds into a 2-story living Christmas tree with the Grinch Who Stole Christmas stealthily cackling and throwing out candy. I scramble to nab a set of foam antlers being thrown by the Dodge dealership elves. What a disjointed, delightful, sacred, secular hodgepodge. The kitschy wonder of Christmas, spectacularly incongruent, like my marriage and family, my life, maybe me. I slip cashmere coat, Barcelona boots, Gucci stockings, and spongy blue reindeer horns down from my perch. Humming Barbara Streisand's "Before the Parade Passes By, I'm gonna get some life back into my life." No one would know I'm a derelict mother and a renegade wife as me and my stilettos pick their way through the detritus on the sidewalk. Marching my newly mustered city girl moxie up Robson Street, I head to Jazz Vespers at St. Andrews Wesleyan, corner of Burrard and Nelson, 2 miles away, says my charged phone. It's getting dark. The parade wears off, chill sets in. I stride past festooned windows unseeing and reach in my pocket for black leather gloves. I'm alone to the bone.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have John Green reading, introducing poetry, and then Audrey Leibolt will be on deck.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Claire. I began as a co-host of Village Books along with Linda Conroy about 5 years ago. And we had taken over from Shannon Laws, who had pioneered the concept a couple of years prior to that. And it was so successful that Linda, we had too many people coming, really. So Linda went to a Wednesday morning group, and these last about an hour and a half. So she went to Wednesday morning at 10:15, and I stayed on Thursdays at 5:30. And we've continued to do this during the COVID. We've been Zooming on the first and third Thursdays at 5:30. Joy has been a nice co-host to assist me. When Shannon started this, she insisted on being kind to everyone. There was a lot of new people. In fact, I was a new person when I started. I'd been writing poetry since my first heartbreak in college, nonstop, and but I never read out loud to anybody. And so it was a very welcoming group, and I've continued on and expanded. The format is each person brings about 10 copies of one poem. We sit around in a circle in the Writers Corner, Village Books, and each person gets about 7 minutes, depending on how many people come. They hand out their copies, read their poem. Everyone critiques it verbally, in a positive way, but of course, constructive. And then they also write down notes. Often people won't verbally give a feedback, but they'll write down something. And then the person gets to take home those 10 critiques. And it's extremely valuable to have that information. It's made a huge difference for me. It's not just, the feedback that you get, but it's also the, say, 9 other people that are reading their poem and you're listening to them and all the different styles. So it's really been a good thing, and I look forward to it for many years to come. Thanks to Village Books for providing the Writers Corner.
Thank you. So we've got Adria Leibold and Betty Scott will be on deck.
The taking is easy. Out of dreams at midnight, the captain's voice calm. Deputy warden, a demon visiting a prisoner in his cell, claims his bed is alive. We took his mattress. I imagine them holding the tangible heft, their hands feeling the thin striped padding, the ticking that keeps the measly stuffing inside, the only soft surface taken from his cell, stripped like a solution, so easy, concrete like taking apart a house or building it, nailing one board to another, like kissing, but how do you love? It's hard as steel unraveling, tangled perceptions of a haunted mind. No escape from sleepless, tormented voices that steal sanity. Following him behind bars, locked doors, his psyche trailing him like a rap sheet. But for now, he lies on the cement floor at peace.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Betty Scott, and then I'm going to check to see if Kenneth Jones is here to be on deck, and if he is not, Linda Conroy, you will be on deck. Betty Scott, are you here? I
Yes,
thought I saw you.
I am.
Oh,
I
perfect.
am. First, I'd like to thank Lynn Jerry for her work in the poetry group's anthology. She'd be here tonight if she was able. And I think it's great to see so many creative and talented friends gathered here today. I'm very pleased. My poem is on page 53. It's titled Buoyancy Amidst the Die-Off of Species. Beyond the drift of kelp, sunlight dips and sways. Water laps your neck, licks your chin, and nips at your lips, arms and legs outstretched, like a cat astray, your trigger fingers a flail in open waters that don't belong to you, where for 500 million years, Medusas, those buoyant jellyfish of the salty seas, have lived mere days to spawn and die. An umbrella-shaped moon jelly, copper in color, undulates closer and closer until you find love is more buoyant than crawl stroke or flutter kick. You swim back through roiling breakers to the gritty beach, knees tar-stained, to mend seagulls' wings and say, ah, men, ah, women. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betty.
Mhm.
Kenneth Jones, I just want to make sure that you're not here secretly under a different name that I'm not seeing. Okay, I'm going to say that's a no. Shoot me a private message if you are here, and I will have you read. In that case, Linda Conroy, you're on deck, and Roger Gilman. Oh, sorry, Linda Conroy, you are up, and Roger Gilman, you are on deck.
Okay, here I am. Can you see me? I can't see me. I'm sorry Ken is not here to read his poem because it's a wonderful poem, so check it out in the anthology. Now, my poem, I have to say, my poem is A Spell of Cabin Fever. And this is so ironic because I wrote this poem at the beginning of February, before COVID, before we were all shut in. And here I thought we were shut in just because we'd had a couple of winter storms and it was too raining to get out too much. So here we go. Little did I know what was coming, right? A spell of cabin fever. Wind lifts a tired corner of the cloud. Unending gray breaks form and reconvenes to spread again across a sleeve of blue. 3 days of rain and smears on the window where deer rub, reaching for the winter rose, stain any inspiration I might find. Drips drown a fresh reality. I moan till I remember weather isn't tied to need of mine, is not stopped by children's fun. It doesn't cease when joy is in its prime. I'm tethered to this earth, in part, just as the smudge of boysenberry hills beyond the rain is stirring still, an inadvertent art against a periwinkle sky.
Thank you so much, Linda. Next up is Roger Gilman, and Barbara Bloom, you're on deck. Roger, are you there?
Am I live?
There you are. You're live. You're on.
Good, thank you. This poem is called The Self Ungloved. It's on page 63 in our anthology. And I begin with a quote from a relative, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, the suffragette author of The Yellow Wallpaper. Start with a naked hand, open, needy, receptive, vulnerable. If you would create or give anything of real value. The self ungloved. Awakening lies beyond the search for self. The self ungloved is like that slow turning out of sleep toward love, the young writer tuning up. With careful curiosity, she bends over the paper with her pen, not with the conqueror's arrogance to command both sound and sense, but as woman with loved guitar or man might inquire with humble hand what subtle, vital things he had to say before they started, she and he, to play. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Barbara Bloom, you're up, and Wendy Hoffman, you're on deck.
Insomnia again. I no longer put myself on that wide ledge at Pinnacles when I can't sleep. But last night in my cabin, 1,000 miles to the north, looking out the skylight at the welter of stars So many, so close packed. They were indistinguishable, one from the other, my heart racing, though I couldn't work out why. I thought again of my old cure, picturing myself in that spot where so often my friend and I had stretched out comfortably against the rocks, pulled sandwiches from our day packs, and talked about anything, everything. The red cliffs of the balconies rising up before us. And if we were lucky, the peregrine falcon that nested in the cliffs might swoop out right before our eyes, and always the turkey vultures soared overhead in ever higher circles, till they were just black specks in the sky, before disappearing entirely. And again, I felt myself stepping easily into air, not shrinking back from the edges as I do in my waking life, but trustfully putting one foot out, then the other, and then falling like a feather from a bird's wing into sleep.
Thank you so much. And now I think we might have lost Wendy, unfortunately. Wendy, are you still with us? I don't see her in the participants. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We might come back to her if she can log back in. In that case, next up is Annika Moyer, and on deck is J.L. Wright.
Hi, I'm Annika or Augie, and I'm so happy to hear all of these poems again. I miss reading poetry with you guys. All right, this is called Minion. This one was written right at the beginning of quarantine. Minion. What boys go to war in search of? A will that binds as loss creates sanctity of life. Met with fear and scarcity, our creativity ignites. In the bold face of adversity, we rise, if we will, to grow. Tender hearts reach out to heal, and in remembrance of those we've lost, we come alive again. Yearning for purpose, we have stood, frozen at the river's edge, unwilling to trade the bank for the current. Perhaps spirit heard a minion of 7 billion silent cries and gave a sacred gift, the pain we would not wish. The change we cower from has come. Dropped into our laps is the seed of all stories of rising. Think it burden or invitation. The choice is ours to use this pain or let it waste, to come aware to all mundane ingratitude of now.
Thank you so much. Next up is J.L. Wright, and on deck is Carolyn Boschetto.
My poem is written about the Bard of Bellingham, who has left us for over a year now. And some of these words came from all of these words came from a memorial service we had for him here in Bellingham last year. Jim Milstead, where art thou? A thoughtful soul offered a second chance at a first-class life. His rough whiskers greeted me, a political soulmate of mine. I miss him, and he missed me in his sad clairvoyance. This pure-hearted grandfather pulled his red wagon with stiletto efficiency. A stolen tree on Christmas Eve left little room for presents, but there was always a book a week. He walked 1.5 times the circumference of the earth on Bellingham streets, plucking disagreeable political signs off boulevards. Then his poetic words were chiseled on banners hoisted above Cornwall. Catatonic inclinations lull us to sleep. Green winged birds begin to tumble from the sky. Yet he is pennies plastered in parking pavement, clinging like mistletoe on a withering branch. Inclusive white angel, Sunny Jim directs us. Get off your duffs. Life is celebration and songs which echo along the pier.
Thank you so much, Joy, and thank you for recommending a dedication to Jim Milstead at the start of the book. Carolyn Boschetto, you are up, and Carla Schaefer, you are on deck.
All right, hello everybody. The poem that I'm going to read tonight is called The Paradox of Now. What of presence casts it bitter fruit to human tongue, fled from like a stagnant pool of unknown contents, unknown depths. With unconscious precision, we flaunt our metropolis of airtight walls, locks, and traps. Barely a drip of its extract seeps into the hard, safe splendor. Presence. Evaded through lenses and lumens, powder-stained mirrors, dull plates we fill with food or don't, jobs that deaden occupy distorted clock ticks so her gravity doesn't have to. Ego and image, spiky creatures only roaming past and future's dunes, whipping us with the G-force of so many moments, blurred, strained moments, every moment but the one that's here, the vivid coordinates of now. And yet, I beg for substance, shortcut to the tolerance of today. We want the colorlessness to fill the backs of our eyes, but shrink from reality in purest form. Eye contact in a quiet room, still circle of strangers, flushed faces and one voice, graceless war against plastic. What horrific original sin-stained blueprint dictates this absurd instinct to evade the well of peace? Does the animal within fear complete departure, a presence so complete it beckons death, or are the fanged inferred the compass? Orbit after orbit, we descend into layers and structures. We descend with overstimulation that ravages us. We plummet. What is it about this strange lineage that renders our frenetic aura, our nature of mystery cursed origin, unworthy of presence's jasper shimmer? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Next up, we have Carla Schaefer, and on deck is David Imburgia.
Echo. How ancestors lived and worked, created the handholds for our future, gave guidance for us to be watchful of the salmon migrating up the Skagit and Samish rivers to lay their eggs. So what they spawn ripples into the future with a flick of fin, a flip of tail. Near Fur Island, above the brown saturated field of flattened weeds and grasses, flocks gather to return north, their voices echoing. It is not the natural history of these swans that we yearn for every winter, but how they remind us of places outside our lives, remind us of recurring cycles of permanence in the wind, tree limbs shifting, and luminescent moon. Sometimes our efforts feel as inconsequential as the melting water which drips from a long frozen ribbon of ruffled ice as it hangs from a desert canyon shelf, causing holes in the snow below. Yet later, when the icicle has disappeared, the thirst of plants has been quenched, their survival assured. Ancient homes of the Sinagua people were shared with swallows and swifts, provided a lookout over valleys and trees below. How simple the rooms, fundamental the daily labors. How thought and action grew as they engaged with the natural world. For us, a reminder to hone down to essentials, listen as we move, and broaden our outlook.
Thank you so much. Next up is David Imburgia, and on deck is John Green.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to David, to Village Books, Claire, and Linda Conroy, and John Green for all that you have done for all of us. And I appreciate everybody being here. We're all each other's best possible audience. Additional appreciation to David is necessary because he sent me in search of a word here about 6 months ago, and I found a great one. And I built this poem around this great word that David sent me to find. Katabatic. Anything can come out of this night. The movement of wind is a saw, picking along my shingles, leaning on my windows. Each of its insistent possibilities presses loud voices into the hollows of my spine, reminding me of root cellar safety while teasing with sarcastic bells of laughter. There's a pressure in this invisible posture. Wind will be what it makes of itself, yet wind is thoughtless or its own idea. In darkness, its invisible voice is magnified. This wind is a great inhalation, sucking like a yawn through the trees, pulling into a tenseness, like an enormous contraction. It's gotten me tight, waiting out the first vortex to crash back, a destructive conception, twisting the worst of the night into a howl and spitting it back as teeth. This night feels perpetual, like two invisibilities moving within each other, like a line of sight through the pit of an eye. And à moi, a transparent witness, it has got me probing to find. Then against the panes, the wind finally eases, not beaten. You cannot beat a spirit. It sobs restlessly in my rose bushes. Brittle brambles scratch against the slats. This wind falls out of the mountains, moves over any water, bends grassy plains as it comes to me. In the wildness of space, it is a freedom voice that demands it is wilder than me. For all the nights, as long as this gale moves, I will listen. To sleep now, I need the wind to howl or to lie in silence, breathless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Next up, we have John Green, and then on deck will be Linda Conroy to introduce prompts.
Thanks, David. I'll be rereading that one again. That was terrific. This is called Last Call. After the movie ended, we all sat in silence. A soft trumpet punched out the credits rolling down the screen. One lady who sat alone rose, cradling her raincoat, and labored toward the door. A young couple followed with their half-empty popcorn bucket in hand. The rest of us froze in mourning. The trumpet enveloped the theater with melancholic fortitude. I was exhausted, wiped out from what I had just seen. An extinction. The last great northern male rhinoceros, 45 years old, unable to get to his feet, too tired, giving up over 2 days, until finally the doctor gave him a needle behind the ear. Moments later, he left us. No doubt, nature and evolution dance and die together. But this was our doing, human greed on display. As the camera zoomed out from the beautiful creature's burial site, the rhino's caretaker's 4-year-old daughter ran across the African plain, flying a red kite high up into the blue sky. Still some hope for us, but the hurt lingers and our boots get heavier. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for closing this out with that. Linda Conroy, I have you up for the introduction for prompts and for your own prompts piece. And then Daniel Kirkpatrick, you will be on deck after that.
So the prompts group, people sometimes wonder, what is the prompts group? And it's the most delightful group. I've so enjoyed, much as I enjoy working with the poetry group, I've so enjoyed this prompts group because you never know what's going to happen. So let me give you an example, what we might do for a prompt, or it's often a writing exercise. We might say, choose 3 verbs, choose good evocative verbs. Now, choose 3 nouns, unusual, but nouns that we know, that we use. Now, turn to the person on your right and exchange one of your verbs, and turn to the people on the left and give away one of your nouns. Now, with the words you have left, write what you want to write. And while you're about it, think about what season it might be and include a news item. So that might be something we'll do. And people come and they'll say, oh, I don't know, I've never really written before. This is my first group. And then I tell them, well, it really doesn't matter what we write, because everything we write is good. We enjoy everything we write, and there's something evocative and there's something meaningful in everything that's written. And people write the most beautiful stuff. They can hardly believe it themselves. And so it's fun, it's lighthearted, it's serious, and it's both. And it's just a really good group. So there we go. I'm happy to have been helping with that group. And we're managing along with emails currently. We haven't done a Zoom group, but you know, we might have to do that, because when I talk about it, then I want to get doing it again. However, here is my some people write poems, some people write prose, some people write collage pieces, you can write whatever at the Pumps group. I mostly write poetry. So here is my poem, which was in response to the prompt, write about a question. So why is there so much air? What else could fill the space between the land and where we might find God? We look up at the mention of his name and wonder that the sky is bluer now we've asked this question than it was last week, when air was an uncomplicated thing. This azure hue, what does it mirror when all about is faded gray? What purpose might a sky hold now? It cushions where the church spire pokes to leave a path for prayer to rise. And when the solemn bell is rung, the message echoes through wandering cloud. Air clears the way to spread all light, floats mist to where it's needed most. A stage for ordinary rain, allows acts larger than ourselves, spreads a canvas for our color, for all of us to shine. It will raise sound, reverberate the raven's caw, broadcast each goat's bleat as it trips across the distant rock, prevent continents from drifting off in search of new geography, show rivulets which way to run, manage patterns of each flake of snow, and coax each worm from soil to daylight, then to startled fish whose gills rely on water's freshness to survive. What makes the water so? The air, I'd say, the air. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Next up is Daniel Kirkpatrick, and on deck is Debbie Broston.
Wow, Linda, that's a tough act to follow. Actually, all of the previous pieces are hard to follow. But in addition to the beautiful poetic writing that Linda offers, she also offers great leadership for our prompts group. So I'm happy to be part of that group. This is a piece, it appears on page 100. It's called Lost. It's a piece of short fiction. And I can't remember the exact prompt that we were called upon that generated this. But I believe it had something to do with experimenting with voice. So this is an experiment in voice. And I wrote the first few paragraphs that I'm going to share today in the prompts group, and then came back to it and fleshed it out into a full story at a later date. Dusk spreads as the corruption of daylight, like a black snow falling, slowly accumulating until everything is covered. This is no ordinary hike, more an industrial shakedown than an evening walk in the woods. We're spread out in a sort of invisible grid. The assemblage includes an odd mix of souls, many of us barely crawling back from the brink of our own self-destruction. But there's a purpose tonight that brought us here and drives us deeper. Somewhere in this forest, a child cowers, shivers, perhaps cries out for help or for mama or for salvation. Little does that 8-year-old suspect that among her searchers is our ragtag group of felons, miscreants, and recovering addicts. Muffled shouts echo through the darkening woods, almost at random. Once we were whole beings, supposedly. We didn't start out with lethal edges. We had childhoods. Some of us actually experienced joy, play, spontaneity. Others, not so much. Playing the survival version of hide and seek to escape a violent parent isn't much of a childhood. Likewise, if mama's string of boyfriends leave you crying in your own bed in fear, or if home was a place other kids enjoyed a security that you had never known. Talk about security. The only predictability my life ever had was while doing time. It sucked, of course, but at least in the can, you know which assholes are out to get you. I've certainly put up with my share of shit. And, well, I suppose I've dealt out my share too. Manslaughter is a pretty ugly word. Doesn't mean I enjoyed myself. My scars run deep, but what the hell? They're just scars. We shuffle on through the bleak forest. Our headlamps offer a trace of hope, illuminating, if not our intentions, at least a dozen feet of darkening woodlands. Presumably, our actions are all coordinated. That's hard to imagine, though, since Bone, our squad leader, is as communicative as the fallen trees over which we stumble. The other bright spot in this bizarre enterprise is the concept that we might, given the mind-boggling menagerie of people spread through this forest, somehow fulfill the role of rescuers. To be a hero, to actually demonstrate usefulness to the world, that's the fantasy. We're thrashing our way through the woods for a fucking fantasy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Next up is Debbie Broston, and on deck is Alexandra Lucas.
I'm just going to apologize. I have a dog who's prone to barking. I sort of use the prompts of Prompt Group as a prompt. Mine is entitled An Ode to Prompts. I'm seated around a crowded table in Village Books. A group of mostly women are furiously scribbling into notebooks or intently typing. 20 minutes spent channeling our unconscious. For me, the joy is taking an idea, following it down an unknown path. I need to prepare nothing, but rather get out of the way of my conscious mind. My pen races down the page breathlessly, trying to keep pace with an image that has taken hold. Generally, I have no clear idea of where I'm going, what I'm trying to say, yet I trust the process implicitly. Time is called. Now for the fun part. Others begin to read their newly birthed words, opening new vistas into places I've read about or have never given much thought to at all. Some of the pieces are profound. Others laugh out loud funny. Some find the words to describe exactly how I've felt when I've been unable to narrate my own tangled emotions. In each piece, I find a connection with the words, a new respect for the writer, a validation that we are all one on the journey. My faith in humanity gets restored. I rest into the shared belief that words are the opening. Through common language made uncommon, I am made whole. Answers are available if we keep asking questions. If we understand, we may be asking the wrong questions. That maybe, just maybe, it's not our job to fix it, whether it be social inequities, political outrage, our friends' current drama, or our own tough decision weighing heavily on our mind. In a world where it's easy to feel as though we need to grab control where we can, I relish the spaces that open up and remind me how much more enjoyable things are when I let go of that illusion. Regardless of subject offered or the chaos erupting in the world outside, I leave richer than when I came. Perhaps it's the certainty that I've found my tribe, those who thoughtfully register each other's patchwork of words, who expertly cut away the superfluous, leaving the writer's vulnerability safely exposed. I'm so glad that decades ago I stumbled into a class which initiated me to the joys of prompt writing. I love the idea that I have nothing to prove. It's not about writing the perfect sentence or piece. Instead, prompt writing asks that you leave your conscious mind behind, that you keep your pen moving and allow the universe to speak through you, that you make sense of the world around you. For me, this is bliss. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Next up is Alexandra Lucas, and then I will introduce the fiction group, and then funnily enough, Alexandra will be first to read there, so she'll bookend me. So Alexandra, you're up.
Right. Hi. My prompt is called Aerialist Feast, and this is the image. Linda brought a bunch of magazine cutouts for us, so it's based on that. All right. Tuesday, February 3rd, one small apple, 95 calories, 4.4 grams of fiber, provides 1 hour of steady glucose, requires 20 minutes of moderate exercise to burn. With a few taps on her phone and a familiar confirmation beep, Marianne logged the apple into her digital meal tracker. She could not recall a day without the taps and the beeps. Ever since age 6, when she began her aerial silks training, Marianne felt the strenuous tightrope walk between eating for enjoyment and eating food as fuel. Every extra bite or chomp or nibble, no matter how small or clandestine, equated to more mass she would have to suspend, or more time she would have to sacrifice to the gym. Her second home illustrated to Marianne from a young age how very possible it was to both love and hate a place in equal parts, and she longed for an English word to express the exact feeling often. Thursday, February 5th. 3 medium carrots, 75 calories, 2.8 grams of fiber, high in antioxidants, requires 15 minutes of moderate exercise to burn. Carrots provide a startling amount of energy for solidified sugar water, which always delighted Marianne a bit, like she was getting away with something by eating them. Tap, tap, beep, confirm. As if her trainer Petrov's strict rules weren't overbearing enough, Marianne felt the food-related demands of society weigh heavily on her shoulders as well. Was kale in again, or was it quinoa? How much was enough, and how much to make it taste a step above bland birdseed? Once Marianne was called too thin when she dropped a significant amount of fat and muscle from her frame by abstaining from meat, and she nearly fainted in the air from the anemia that comes when vegetarianism isn't done right. While Marianne was usually happy to be back in her strongest and most athletic body, societal norms still grumbled at her unhealthy frame, which made Marianne suspect that there was no pleasing that damn society thing, no matter what shape she contorted herself into. Saturday, February 7th, 8 ounces of pasta, penne, 300 calories, 2.7 grams of fiber, additional data redacted. Enough energy for 30 minutes at least, but Marianne's finger hovered over the meal tracker button. There were no taps that time, and there was no beep. Her little secret, just this once. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. I will now introduce the fiction group, and then we will hear again from Alexandra, who is also part of the fiction group. I joined the fiction group back in 2013 after graduating from my undergrad at Western, and none of my professors I've checked, none of them are here. I learned so much more, I felt like, in 4 months in that group than I did in 4 years at Western. Like many of the people who've spoken, just coming into these communities means so much, and you get so much out of it. It's such a delight. It's wonderful. I've really enjoyed being able to work with Joe Donnelly and with Patricia Richardson. Joe joined my group and then broke away and formed a second fiction group, which is still active under Patricia. Joe also is the one who formatted this lovely book. So thank you very much to both of them. Thank you to everyone else who has been with the group for so long. It's meant the world to be able to have this experience with you. Without further ado, next up we have Alexandra Lucas reading for you again, and on deck we have Emily Ulig.
Great. Hey, so I'm going to read an excerpt from The Lighthouse Remains, which I do want to highlight features a drawing of a lighthouse from Rose, also in our fiction group. So, all right. Why did you become a lighthouse keeper then? His visitor continued, rolling her eyes in playful exasperation. Although she sipped her tea, the girl did not pounce on the cookies right away. The old man admired her restraint. He thought a minute, and soon a smile spread across the caretaker's broad face. Everyone needs a light in a storm. Young and old, skinny and stout, rich and poor, it matters none. The girl squinted with a child's exaggerated concentration. You spend a lot of time thinking about things from the past, huh? When you get to know as many years as I, you'll find you keep one foot in the past at all times, whether you will it or no. Flashes of light punctuated his sentence, signaling the squall's arrival. Deep in his bones, he braced himself for the thunder that was sure to follow. If that's true, then why haven't you recognized me yet? The girl cocked her head at him in wonderment, locking onto his gaze so that he could clearly drink in the brush strokes of her face. Clear blue eyes like marbles, like the great big shooters he used to save for when he was playing for keeps. An expressive mouth that promised to grow wide and mirthful after the onset of adulthood. And now that the girl was dry, the old man could finally make out a tangle of dark ringlets that framed her freckled cheeks. I know ye, the man found himself saying. He held a fragile hand out to her as thunder rumbled closer. But it can't be possible. It can't. I am here, so therefore it can and it must. She removed her frock with a dramatic flourish to reveal a healthy frame that belied her initial scrawny appearance. As she emerged from her damp cocoon, the girl became less a drowned thing and more a familiar, dark-haired ghost. Malanov, the former keeper breathed, his face becoming as translucent as his hands. He hadn't spoken the Gallic term of endearment in what seemed like a lifetime, and he felt suddenly as if he was floating above them, surveying the impossible reunion. I thought I lost you to the sea years ago. You knew I would find you, Doc, just like you know why I have come here. As she spoke, he watched through the window as a thick mist descended upon the bay outside. The crackle of his old CB radio disrupted the spell. He always left it on, just in case. Wait, the old man pleaded. Until that dreadful moment, even after losing Barbara, he had never thought about how worthless his knickknacks would become. Painstakingly collected as they were, without any living heirs, they were always destined for the trash heap. He looked at his collection for help, but every piece in it remained silent. A woman's voice burst through the radio. The man recognized its cadence as vibrant, modern. Hello? Please, anyone, this is the Kelpie. Our navigation's out and we gotta get hard and fast ashore before the storm swallows us whole. Pritchard Point, hello? The girl put her hands on her hips and frowned. We are delayed as it is. You may not remember the urgency of the living, lass, but please grant me this one last chance. She ran her thin thumb over her pocket watch once, twice. Fine, a light in a storm, she conceded, sighing and snapping her watch shut. If that's what you mean to do, you haven't much time left. Make haste. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Emily Ulig, and on deck is Ken Meyer.
Hi, okay, I'm reading from my story on mile markers. We are driving by mile 212 and there is silence. The couple in my back seat have been fighting since mile 189. Something about where they will put the washer and the dryer, and you never listen. I move my hand from the steering wheel to turn the radio on, but I don't know what kind of music Alex's girlfriend likes. Anything is better than the wrong music. I drop my hand. I need a truck, Alex told me 3 days ago. She wants to move north. They've got a good school system. I said okay. We had ran into old her at the liquor store and the other, older her at the Home Depot. Ex-girlfriends. We don't remember their names. I've already got a new job, Alex continued. I'm going to be delivering water coolers. Can you believe it? How lucky is that? I thought, what about your apartment with a view over the lake, with the camping chairs we put on the roof in between hers, with the mural we painted on the wall? just one night after a bottle of wine mixed with orange juice because I don't really like wine. I don't know what we've been trying to paint, but in the morning, still buzzing with paint fumes and the remaining bubbles in our wine glasses, we decided it was a map of the world we were going to invent together someday. I've already got a new place with extra closets. You want to see? He has pictures on his phone. I didn't ask him why he'd need a big closet. I had to take the bus over to my Uncle Louie's house. He doesn't have a phone. And agreed to spend 3 hours watching on the roof for the communists who still think they're after him before he would let me borrow his truck. Then I had to speed read Truck Driving for Dummies. In only 2.5 days. That was like Alex, though. He didn't like to give me very much warning. I'm getting married, he'd said 4 years ago. In a couple weeks. You should come because there'll be cake. It had taken 10 days of overtime at the burger joint I used to work to afford a dress. 9 days for Dancing for Dummies to be returned to the library. The night before, I tried them both. I put on the dress and propped the book on the table. I was twirling around, knocking stuff off the coffee table when there was banging on my door. Alex filled the peephole. She's gone. Alex collapsed on my table, knocking the rest of its contents to the ground. My arms stuck out in an unanswered hug. A broken vase, water seeping into the carpet. Daisies that should have been tossed out weeks ago. Run off with another man. What are you wearing? You look like a girl. Mile 227. I've known Alex 20 years, and I've never known him to go half an hour without talking. This might be some kind of record.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Ken Meyer, and on deck, we have Tom Altruder.
Okay, hi everybody. Thank you, VB, and thanks, David, for all your good work. I went in a little different direction on this one. I usually don't do memoir-y things, but here I'm sort of more nonfiction writing. Colonel Juno, defense attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, didn't return. In early July 1987, there were food shortages of some items in the city, and he drove down to Kuwait City on a routine run for hard-to-find foodstuffs and told everyone he would see them soon. But soon never came. It had been a few days, then a week, then 10 days. Diplomatic embassies are like medieval feudal domains, with the ambassador being the feudal ward and everyone else merely the bustling scribes, servants, or guards, no matter what agency or department you work for. The ambassador is the chief of mission and the president's person on the spot. He can dismiss any officer with the flick of a memo saying no more than, "I've lost confidence in X." He'll depart the embassy within 10 days. No appeal, no recourse. The failure of the colonel to return would ordinarily have resulted in the meeting of all the high officers, but in Baghdad, Ambassador Byrd decided to handle the matter another way, cutting through all the rumors and hallway whispers. On 17 July, at the weekly Alliance meeting, and all 35 people were there, after a few routine items, Byrd went to the heart of the matter. Colonel Juno is detained by the Kuwaiti authorities. We don't know if he's going to be returning at all. But in fact, the colonel did later return for about a week, and then he was booted out of Iraq. The story eventually emerged that he had been apprehended counting the cars of a train bearing munitions and other items heading for Baghdad. Spooky stuff. That hardly seemed like an illegal act, but that was for the Kuwaiti authorities to decide, and Kuwait was an ally of Iraq in the war against Iran. But, asked somebody at the meeting, doesn't the colonel have diplomatic immunity, no matter what he's accused of? This was a key point of interest for everyone in the room. Hey, after all, our skins are in this too. Now that's a reasonable question, admitted the ambassador, but the colonel is accredited to Iraq, not Kuwait. Protections and conventions which apply here might not be observed there. Oh boy, now you tell us. Whatever transpires, continued the ambassador, while he is being held, someone will go down and bring back his car and personal effects, because eventually he'll probably be put on a plane and sent out of the country. Who's going to volunteer? After some chatter around the room, it was decided that Briggs, one of the communicators, a red-bearded Navy veteran who looks like a good candidate to be your department store Santa, would fly down and drive the vehicle back. And we need one other, said the ambassador. I'll go, said Mark. He was a 28-year-old technician. He had been an exchange student in Jordan, and he was one of the few officers at the embassy who spoke Arabic. Mark, that's very good, said the ambassador. Mark and Briggs, mopping up boys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ken. Next up is Tom Altruder, and on deck is Josh Mailer.
Well, hello. Yeah, I wrote this story back in last January originally, and then worked it through the group, and basically was done with it by April. But this is like just, I don't know, it was a weird story that came out of my head. I'll just go. The leader is dead, beaten to death by the mob. Shit in his pants revealed as his broke body was dragged around the streets of the capital. Air reeking of burning tires, tear gas, and all the human effluent which fills such violence. No silence, no solid victory, only sirens and wails of the wounded. The revolution has been viewed from every point of view and only shows lack of cohesion. The center did not hold, except as the eye of an erratic vortex in search of a plan. The leader is gone. All that is left is wait for the next one, the one who can shed the most blood of their rivals, who can posit a plan and rein in all the factions. Suffering a pogrom by the previous regime relived in reverse. Payback and paranoia among the risen as arrangements are made for mass executions of the overthrown and suspected sympathizers. Na listens to the news on his car's radio. Where he sits across the river, the fires are coming through the capital, even though they're as if there is some new national holiday occurring. Sucking down the last of his blunt, he wonders what name it will take. Picks up his phone and checks his contacts. Scrolls through those who might be winners, but not discounting a ruthless dark horse or two. An old saying is, chaos is the doors of opportunity left open. Na messages, flicks around the radio dial, checks his feed, makes calculations. Too many ways to end up on the wrong side of someone now that everything has gone fine. Already departing flights have been canceled along with the trains. Border points have been sealed. The capital is not the only place seized by turmoil. The country, all of it, is convulsed by the fever of having an accomplished stage one of overthrow. The hangovers will be brutal and fatal to some. Na wants to savor the moment while also thinking in the short term might find his ass blindfolded in a stadium waiting for a bullet. Ponders calling Ya, who's probably sleeping. Knowing Ya, she will awake with a grudge about being disturbed by expected news. Ya views all the events as a page turned slowly after careful reading. Small drips now have to take their time, as rivers do. Only human history runs faster. Na knows Ya will just say call back in 40 years and go back to sleep. Ya has been waiting for this very event her entire life, holding fast until some inevitable cataclysmic eventuality would strike. The revolution is Ya's first pick as the best one to sleep through, given the recyclable nature of those events. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Josh Mailer, and following that will be me on deck.
Hello, everybody. Good to be back. Here comes a man down the street, one you wouldn't notice at first. He has a long, thin nose, small and curious eyes, and a pallid complexion, his face nearly translucent. On one particular day, he wore a brown three-piece seersucker suit, a matching fedora perched atop his head. A bright red tie stands out like a bloodstain against his white shirt, both knife sharp. If you were to pass him in his hard-covered rolling case, you might hesitate, cross the street, and say a silent prayer. If you passed him at night, you might pause longer, feeling a stabbing in your chest, or you might never be seen again. Despite his appearance, the playful tip of his hat, there was nothing light about this man. The air around him weighed heavily, dandelion seeds falling to the ground when they neared him. The breeze stilled, sound seemed to cease existing in his presence. His shoes, paired immaculately with his suit, sparkled in the sunlight. If you were to be looking at them when the sun glinted off them, you might see a glimpse of something. Maybe not consciously aware of it, but a wave of heat would wash over you. He walked the empty street, the heat not causing him to sweat even though it had to be near 100 degrees. Dogs whimpered behind white fences as he passed. Other animals ran. He walked oblivious, or perhaps fully aware of his effect. His thoughts and intentions are hidden, unknowable to anyone beyond his own counsel. Just the scrabbling of the hard plastic wheels against the sidewalk accompanied his journey. Sasha McDonald was playing in the living room, sitting in the middle of a pile of dolls, all her sisters, all of which had been unequivocally prohibited from her touch. But here she was, while her sister was out, holding and touching that which she coveted most. Certainly she had her own, and undoubtedly they were just as fine as these, but the joy of forbidden pleasures far outweighed the actual act of playing with them. As she sat in the temperature-controlled house, she watched a sliver of shadow slowly growing, stretching out from the front door toward her, the edges seeming to undulate, quiver as they passed over her sister's dolls. As they neared Sasha, she thought she could see thin, crooked fingers emerge, the tips grasping toward her legs. 3 loud raps at the door. Sasha's head whipped up. Through lace curtains, she could see through the door, at the man standing on the other side, watching her. He had his hat pushed back on his head, like her great-grandfather in the pictures they had upstairs. But unlike her great-grandfather, this man wasn't smiling. His eyes weren't squinting in joy. This man's face was blank, a locked door to the thoughts behind. He knocked again, and the door seemed to shake in the frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Next up is me, and then we'll hear once more from Claire. And before I read, I just want to say thank you again so much to everyone who came out, everyone who made this possible. Thank you all. I've gone through the participants. I see all my friends and family who are here. I appreciate you all being here. This is the beginning of Sisyphus Cafe. Tyler's throat feels like it's been stabbed. He doesn't quite remember how he arrived at the service counter, illuminated just enough that he can see the kitchen. The pain in his throat subsides to a desperate thirst, and he forgets things like where he must have come from or where he can find the exit. Black clouds roll by outside the windows like a silent movie. What'll it be? He blinks and looks up at the barista, his gaze immediately sliding past to search for a menu. Do you have any beers on tap? He asks. The barista's arms are smoke as they gesture to a wooden board. List is over there. What do you usually drink? Light brews without too many hops. Tyler plays with the strings on his hoodie, pulling them back and forth. He doesn't remember putting this on when he woke up, but he likes the navy blue comfort of the sweater. Swallowing, his throat sticks. Lightest is probably our Hellas, sort of like a lager. I'll have that then. He releases the hoodie strings to grab his wallet. The barista's face should look like a smile, but Tyler still isn't focused enough to absorb any features. They punch some numbers into the tablet. 5 even for you. Tyler pushes $6 across the smooth surface between them. The barista scoops the extra $1 into a glass jar and puts the 5 in their till. I'll have that right out, they say. Tyler isn't sure if the barista will be able to see where he goes from the small kitchen. He eyes a table. I'll be in the corner near the Christmas lights. Okay, as soon as I finish this order, I'll bring yours out. Have a good day. Isn't it night? Tyler says, looking out at the stolid clouds. Hard to tell. The barista stares at him, curls of smoke at odds with the immovable nature of their body. Claire, you're up. Thank you all.
Wow. Well done. I was expecting you to read a little bit more of that piece. So, thank you. Thank you to all of you. What a great selection. Such a massive, wide variety of just everything, and all so wonderful. So thank you. David, is there anything else that we want to I don't know, you want to open it up for any discussion at all at the end, or we actually didn't talk about what we were going to do, if there's any questions or.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a fine and dandy thing to do. I do want to, a few people mentioned this, but I believe all of these writing groups in one form or another are currently running. And you can, Linda, is that right with prompts? You're just running on email? Can you give me a nod or?
Prompts is not right. Well, I'm sending out prompts by email and I get responses from some people. So we're maintaining in contact. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Wednesday poetry group is not running either. And I know people have other associations and other groups. So yes.
Yeah.
So David, what would be the best way for someone if they wanted to, explore one of the other groups? Like what would be the best way to?
You could email me directly and I will set you up with them. But really, you should email Paul Hansen, I think. But then the thing is Paul will just email me. Exactly. I don't work for Village Books, but yeah. So if you look on the website, you'll find Paul's email. You can email him. He will forward you to me, and I will help you get in contact with the right person. I think that's the simplest way because it's better that Paul's email be out there publicly rather than mine.
Right. Well, yes, but I think that's very accurate in how that will go down. I'm putting in the chat. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, for poetry, sorry, Claire, but for poetry, we're still ongoing first and third Thursdays at 5:30, and Joy has been sending out her Zoom, and I do it sometimes, and anyone can join. So you can send me an email, jsgreenmachine@yahoo.com, if anyone's interested. I'm not scared.
And I see that Claire's put in a link for the anthology in the chat. There are only about 60 copies, a little less than 60 copies, fewer than 60 copies, sorry, mass nouns versus countable nouns. Fewer than 60 copies available for sale. So, get them while they're hot. They're a limited edition commodity. And then you can also, if you go onto the Village Books website, there is an area for the Writers Corner, and that has information about when everything meets. It sounds like everyone who is still meeting is on the same schedule that they are. As Tom says, we are not recluses. We're very happy to chat. And then I guess, yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to say something. I also, whenever we enter this stage, I always like to give my benediction that if you have to go somewhere, that's okay. There's a lot of faces. We won't be able to track you leaving. Yeah. Thank you all so very much for coming.
Yes, thank you. I thank everyone. We had almost 50 people in the room tonight, so that's.
I see Joe. He's the one who designed it.
Yes,
he did it.
Joe, we see you.
Thank you, Joe. I've got your copy still.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think if you go to the Village Books website, if you go to the page that I'm going to pop in the chat once more because it kind of cycled up, I think it says something like we have over 100 copies, but that's not an accurate number. So don't trust that number. And also, I would like to reiterate for anyone who didn't hear me say at the beginning, the quickest way to get a book from Village Books right now is to either call and place your order over the phone or go to the bookstore and get it. Our online orders right now are very slow because fortunately we've been inundated. It's a good problem to have, but if you want your books quickly, then you should call or come to the store. So
and they will mail them to you for 99 cents, which I love. That's how I got mine. I don't want to wait in line. I want my copy.
Yep, that's true. And also right now, however, mail is slow, particularly the media mail. So if you're hoping for it by the holidays, just that word of warning. There's like no guarantees these days there's no guarantees with anything other than the fact that we have no guarantees.
That this is quality writing. That's the guarantee.
Yes, this beautiful book right here. So thank everybody. If anybody has any last words, now's the time. And I'm just so grateful to all of you. I'm so grateful for this strong writing community that Village Books has and that Whatcom County has. So is that it? Mr. Beaumier, are we done?
I think we're done. If you have any questions, specifically for me, presumably you have the email of someone in this room, in this Zoom virtual room. They can eventually get around to me. Thank you so much, Claire, as Tom says. Thank you to Village Books. Oh, where can we get the recording? That Alexander has a good question there.
The recording is going to be on our YouTube channel. I'm going to get that
We-
uploaded probably this afternoon or this evening.
Okay.
I will email it to you, David, and then I have everybody's email who's here. So if you want me to just email it to the whole email list, I can do that.
That sounds perfect. Thank you. That'll save me a step.
Okay. Awesome. Will do. All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Stay well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.